5 years had passed since the Battle of Raxi Prime. The galaxy that had once mocked humanity now looked to Earth for leadership, guidance, and protection. The transformation had been so complete that younger species barely remembered a time when humans were considered primitive. Captain Lee Min-ho, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, stood on the bridge of a new vessel, the Unity. It was the first ship designed and built jointly by humans and coalition species. The engineering combined Quellan biotechnology, Norian precision manufacturing, Vraxi durability standards, and human innovation. It was a symbol of what the galaxy could achieve when working together. All systems operational, his first officer reported. She was a young Norian named Shivara, one of the first non-humans to serve on a human vessel. The Unity is ready for her maiden voyage, Admiral. Lee Min-ho nodded, looking out at the assembled fleet. 200 ships from 30 different species, all retrofitted with human-designed defensive systems and operating under Terra Protocol standards. They would patrol the outer rim, watching for threats like the Devourers. Then let's show them what unity really means, he said quietly. On Earth, in the Grand Hall where the Coalition Council now met regularly, Commander Park Ji-hoon stood before the assembled delegates. He was older now, his hair showing gray at the temples, but his voice remained strong. 5 years ago, many of you laughed when I offered humanity's help against the Devourers. Today we stand as equals, more than equals, as partners. But I must remind you all that the moment we revealed our true military power was not our greatest achievement. He paused, letting silence fill the chamber. Our greatest achievement was choosing to use that power to protect others rather than dominate them. That choice defined who humanity is and who we want to be in this galaxy. Ambassador Kim Nari, now serving as the Coalition's chief diplomatic officer, added, "The universe will send many threats against us. Some we will defeat with weapons. Others we will overcome with wisdom, diplomacy, and the unity that we've built together. The Devourers taught us that no single species can survive alone." In the audience, War Marshal Thrax stood. He was older now, his scales dulled by age, but his voice remained powerful. The Vraxi people made a covenant 5 years ago. We swore we would never mock another species again. We swore we would approach all beings with humility and respect. Today I renew that covenant before this council, and I add this. Any species that threatens humanity threatens the Vraxi. We stand with you as you stood with us. One by one, other species representatives stood and made similar pledges. The Norians, the Quellans, the Drifters. All of them acknowledged the debt they owed humanity, and the new galactic order that had emerged from that debt. At the Joint Species Military Academy, now fully operational and hosting 10,000 cadets, Oh Tae-hyung stood at attention for his graduation ceremony. Beside him stood Krithos, his Vraxi battle brother. They had trained together for 5 years, learning each other's languages, fighting styles, and cultures. They had become closer than friends. They had become family. General Kang Yoonji presided over the ceremony. "You are the first generation to graduate from this academy," she told the assembled cadets. "You represent something new in galactic history. Warriors trained in multiple traditions, thinkers educated in diverse philosophies, leaders prepared to serve not just your own species but all species." She gestured to the human and Vraxi standing side by side. Oh Tae-hyung and Krithos exemplify what we hope to achieve. Separately, they are skilled officers. Together, they are unstoppable. That is the power of unity. That is what will keep this galaxy safe. In the research stations, Dr. Choi Hana was preparing for the most significant technology transfer yet. After 5 years of cooperation, humanity had decided to share the quantum fold drive technology with the Coalition. It was a calculated risk, but one that Earth's leadership believed was necessary. "Are you certain about this?" Clustermind 7 asked, observing the technical specifications being loaded into the shared database. "This technology is what gave humanity decisive advantage in the battle. Sharing it reduces your military superiority." Choi Hana smiled. "Military superiority means nothing if we're not secure. The galaxy is safer when everyone can respond quickly to threats. Besides, we're not sharing everything. We still have weapons and capabilities that remain classified. Trust, remember, it builds slowly." Deep in space, beyond the edge of Coalition territory, monitoring stations continued to track the mysterious signals that Director Han Ji-soo had detected years earlier. The signals were getting closer. Whatever civilization was sending them would reach Coalition space within 50 years. Engineer Shin Do-yun, now heading the Coalition's Joint Weapons Research Program, was overseeing the development of new defensive systems designed specifically for this unknown threat. He worked alongside scientists from a dozen species, combining knowledge that had previously been kept separate. The irony, he said to his team, is that humanity spent years hiding our capabilities because we feared the Coalition would see us as a threat. Now we're revealing everything we have because we fear something else might be the real threat. His Quellan colleague transmitted agreement. Evolution, adaptation. Your species excels at this. You recognize when old strategies must change. Many species become rigid with age. Humanity remains flexible. On Vraxi Prime, a memorial stood in the capital city's center. It was a joint human-Vraxi construction, a massive structure of metal and stone that reached toward the sky. Inscribed on its surface in every Coalition language were the names of the 3 million Vraxi who had died in the Devourer attacks, and below that a simple phrase, "They saved us when they could have conquered us. We will never forget." Young Vraxi children visited the memorial every day, learning the story of how humanity had appeared when all hope seemed lost. The children would grow up in a galaxy where humans were heroes, not jokes. That shift in perspective would shape interspecies relations for generations. Lieutenant Yoon Ji-won, now a commander in the Joint Defense Forces, still wore the warrior beads that Vraxi children had given her 5 years ago. She had been offered promotions that would take her away from active flight duty, but she had refused them all. She preferred the cockpit of a fighter to the chair behind a desk. She led a mixed squadron now, human, Vraxi, Norian, and Quellan pilots all working together. They were the best in the fleet, not because any one species was superior, but because they had learned from each other. Commander Yoon, her Vraxi wingmate transmitted during a training exercise, "I have studied your battle records from Vraxi Prime. The way you phased through enemy ships, it should have been impossible. How did you do it?" Yoon Ji-won's laughter carried across the communication channel.
How did I do it?
"I stopped thinking about what was impossible and started thinking about what was necessary. That's the secret to everything humanity achieves. We don't accept limitations, we find ways around them." Admiral Kwon Taeyang, now semi-retired but still advising Coalition Military Command, sat in his office reviewing reports. The Devourer threat had been completely eliminated. Human hunter-killer fleets had tracked down every last nest and destroyed them. But new threats were always appearing at the edges of known space. He touched a control on his desk, bringing up classified files that only the highest levels of Earth's government could access. Project Gehenna, the weapon that humanity had sworn never to use except to prevent human extinction. It still existed, hidden in secure facilities, maintained by a skeleton crew who hoped it would never be needed. "Sir," his aide entered the office, "you have a priority message from the frontier monitoring stations. The unknown signals have changed. They're broadcasting in what appears to be a greeting protocol." Kwon's eyebrows rose. "A greeting? They want to talk?" "It appears so. The linguistics AI is trying to decode the message now. Should we alert the Coalition Council?" "Yes, immediately." Kwon stood and straightened his uniform. "If they're trying to communicate, maybe they're peaceful. Or maybe they're just being polite before they attack. Either way, the galaxy needs to be ready." At the Coalition Council, the emergency session was called within hours. Every species representative was present, either physically or through hologram. The decoded message played for all to hear. It was simple and direct. "We are the architects. We have watched your development with interest. We are pleased to see cooperation replacing conflict. We wish to meet with your leaders. We mean no harm. We bring gifts of knowledge." The chamber erupted in debate. Some species wanted to welcome the architects immediately. Others urged caution, remembering how the Devourers had arrived without warning. Still others looked to humanity, waiting to see what the species that had saved them before would recommend now. Commander Park Ji-hoon stood at his podium and waited for silence. When every eye was on him, he spoke carefully. 5 years ago, the Coalition assumed we were primitive because we looked primitive. That assumption nearly cost billions of lives. Let us not make the same mistake with the architects. We know nothing about them except that they have technology to cross vast distances, and they claim to bring gifts. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Vraxi Prime. The galaxy was changing in ways that no one could have predicted. In orbit above Earth, The first Joint Species Military Academy was being constructed. The massive station would house cadets from all 47 coalition species, training them together in new military doctrines that combined the best of everyone's knowledge. General Kang Yunji stood in the incomplete command center, looking out at the construction crews working on the station's outer hull. She was 50 years old and had just been promoted to commander of coalition joint forces. She was the first human, the first being of any species in 200 years to hold such a position. The weight of that responsibility pressed on her shoulders every day. "General, the first transport is arriving," her aide announced. "Cadets from the Norian, Quellan, and Vraxi homeworlds."
Should we begin the welcoming ceremony?
Kang Yunji nodded. "Yes, and make sure our human cadets are ready. This is about showing unity, not showing off." Among the arriving cadets was Oh Tae-hyung, a 20-year-old human from Seoul. He had scored in the top 1% on every entrance exam. He had trained his entire life to join Earth's military, but now, standing in the docking bay alongside young Vraxi warriors, Norian pilots, and Quellan tacticians, he felt something he hadn't expected. Nervousness. A young Vraxi approached him. The reptilian scales were still bright green, unmarked by battle scars. "You are human," the Vraxi said, his translation device turning the hisses and clicks into standard language. "My name is Kratos. My family lives on Vraxi Prime. Your people saved them." Tae-hyung didn't know what to say. "I'm Oh Tae-hyung. I'm glad your family survived." Kratos performed a small bow. "In my culture, when someone saves your family, they become your battle brother. Will you train with me? Will you teach me your ways?" Tae-hyung felt his nervousness fade, replaced by something warmer. He returned the bow. "I would be honored, Kratos. And you can teach me your ways. That's what we're here for, right? To learn from each other." Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. The human military doctrine, what was now officially called the Terra Protocols, was being adopted by coalition forces everywhere. These protocols represented a fundamental shift in how galactic military forces operated. On a coalition training world, Admiral Kwan Tae-yang addressed a gathering of senior military officers from 24 species. He looked older now, the stress of the past months showing in the lines around his eyes. But his voice remained strong. "The Terra Protocols are based on 7 core principles," he explained. "First, assume your enemy is more capable than they appear. Never underestimate. Second, victory is preferable to glory and survival is preferable to victory. Living to fight another day is not cowardice, it's strategy." He continued through the list. "Protect civilians of all species, even enemies. Maintain technological superiority through constant innovation. Share defensive knowledge but keep offensive capabilities classified. Never reveal full capabilities until necessary. Use minimum force to achieve objectives. Always offer mercy before annihilation." A Norian admiral raised his wing. "Admiral Kwan, these protocols suggest restraint and caution. For 10,000 years, my people have believed that overwhelming force deployed immediately creates the fastest victories. Why do humans prefer this softer approach?" Kwan's expression became grave. "Because overwhelming force deployed immediately only works if you're actually the strongest power in the room. What happens when you meet someone stronger? The Terra Protocols are designed for the possibility that there's always someone more powerful out there. We prepare for threats we haven't met yet." He pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's history, images of ancient wars, nuclear explosions, environmental collapse, and near-extinction events flickered past. "My species nearly destroyed itself dozens of times. We learned that the most dangerous enemy is often your own arrogance. These protocols exist to prevent that mistake." Meanwhile, in the research stations orbiting Earth's moon, Dr. Choi Hana was conducting the most delicate operation in human history: the controlled sharing of technology with coalition species. She had to balance multiple competing interests, give enough to prove humanity's good intentions, but not so much that it would destabilize galactic power structures or be turned against humanity. She was currently working with a team of Quellan biotechnology specialists. Their species had mastered organic computing, growing computer systems from engineered cells. Humans had perfected quantum computing, using particles existing in multiple states simultaneously. Together they were creating something neither species could achieve alone. "The processing power is extraordinary," Cluster Mind 7 transmitted, examining their latest prototype. This combined system can calculate outcomes for billions of variables simultaneously. Why share this with us, Dr. Choi? Such technology gives whoever controls it a significant advantage. Choi Hana smiled. Because advantage means nothing if we're all dead. The Devourers were just one threat. My analysts believe there are others out there, possibly worse. We need the entire coalition to be as advanced as possible. But you do not share everything, the cluster mind observed. Your quantum fold drives, your molecular disruptors, your gravitational weapons, these remain human secrets. Yes, Choi Hana admitted. Trust takes time. We share what defends. We keep what destroys. Give us a few more years to see how this partnership works. If all goes well, we'll share more. If not, she shrugged. Well, at least we'll all have better defenses. On Vraxi Prime, something remarkable was happening. Ambassador Prime Velthar, a retired Vraxi general who had fought in the final defense of his home world, had become humanity's most vocal supporter in coalition politics. He traveled from world to world speaking to crowds about what he had witnessed. I stood on my flagship's bridge and prepared to die, he told an audience of young Norian officers. I had accepted that my species would be wiped out. Then humans appeared, not to conquer us, not to demand tribute, but to save us even though we had mocked them just days before. He spread his clawed hands. That is the measure of true strength. Not the weapons you carry, but the restraint in knowing when not to use them. Humanity taught us this lesson. Now we must never forget it. Back on Earth, Director Han Jisoo sat in a secure briefing room with the planet's top political and military leaders. Her expression was troubled as she reviewed the latest intelligence reports. The monitoring stations at the galaxy's edge have detected something, she explained. Signals that don't match any known species. Movement patterns that suggest a civilization far more advanced than the Devourers. We don't know who they are or what they want, but preliminary analysis suggests their technology makes even our capabilities look primitive. President Eugenia, Earth's elected leader, leaned forward. How long do we have before they arrive? Unknown. Could be years. Could be decades. Could be centuries. Han Jisoo pulled up a star map showing the signal's origin point. But they're out there. And eventually they'll reach coalition space. Then we continue building, the president decided. We strengthen the coalition. We advance our technology. We prepare for the day when being the galaxy's strongest power isn't enough. Admiral Kwan nodded in agreement. The Terra protocols exist for exactly this scenario. We assume there's always a bigger threat. We prepare accordingly. At the Joint Species Military Academy, Cadet Oh Tai-hyung and his battle brother Krithos were going through combat simulations together. The scenario was brutal, defending a colony against overwhelming odds. They had failed 6 times already. Your human tactics are strange, Krithos said as they prepared for Attempt 7. My people would charge forward, using our strength to break the enemy. You prefer to move around them, strike from unexpected angles. Taehyung nodded. It's about efficiency. Why fight fair if you don't have to? Why waste lives in a direct assault when you can achieve the same goal with better positioning? Krithos's translator carried a sound that might have been laughter. Perhaps that's why you small, soft humans are more dangerous than you look. You think differently than warriors are supposed to think. They ran the simulation again. This time they combined approaches, Vraxi strength with human cunning. They succeeded with minimal losses, you see, Taehyung said, grinning. Together we're stronger than either of us alone. That's the whole point of the coalition, isn't it? Krithos performed the Vraxi gesture of agreement. Yes, but it took your species revealing your hidden strength to teach us that lesson. The Vraxi were proud. We believed our way was the only way. Now we learn from you. This is humbling. Good, Taehyung replied. Humility keeps you alive. Arrogance gets you killed. That's Protocol 1. Across the galaxy, humanity's influence was spreading, not through conquest or force, but through example and cooperation. Species that had once viewed humans as primitive now sought their counsel. Military doctrines that had remained unchanged for thousands of years were being revised based on human recommendations, and in the background, quietly and carefully, humanity continued to build. New weapons were developed. New ships were constructed. New defense systems were deployed. The Galactic Coalition Council chamber had never been so quiet. Every species representative sat in absolute silence, staring at the holographic display that showed the aftermath of the Battle of Vraxi Prime. The numbers were clear and undeniable. 3,000 Devourer ships destroyed in 23 minutes. 0 human casualties. 0 human ships lost. High Chancellor Krivesh of the Norian Empire stood at his podium, his wings folded tightly against his body. His species had ruled the stars for 10,000 years. They had seen civilizations rise and fall. They had witnessed technological marvels and military campaigns that reshaped entire sectors. But they had never seen anything like this. How? He asked simply. His voice, usually so full of aristocratic confidence, now sounded old and tired. How did we not know? Commander Park Ji-hoon stood at the human podium. Unlike his last appearance before the council, no one was laughing now. Every alien eye was fixed on him with a mixture of fear, respect, and anger. Honorable Chancellor, Park Ji-hoon began, you never asked about our full capabilities. You looked at what we showed you and made assumptions. We simply didn't correct those assumptions. Ambassador Kim Nari rose to stand beside him. She activated a new holographic display that showed Earth's actual military assets. As the numbers appeared, gasps and clicking sounds rippled through the chamber. 500 Dreadnought-class warships, 2,000 cruiser-class vessels still under construction, 50,000 fighter craft, 12 fortress stations orbiting Earth, 5 million autonomous combat drones, weapons capable of destroying entire planets, though humanity swore never to use them except to prevent human extinction. The display showed technology that shouldn't exist. Quantum fold drives that allowed instantaneous travel, gravitational shields that bent space itself, weapons that could tear apart matter at the molecular level, medical technology that could regrow lost limbs and cure radiation poisoning in minutes. Cluster Mind 7 of the Quellan Collective processed the data and transmitted its conclusion. Analysis complete. Combined human military capability exceeds total coalition forces by factor of 3.7. Probability of coalition victory in hostile scenario, 0.02%. Query: why did humanity not conquer coalition when first contact was made? Ambassador Kim Nari let the question hang in the air for a moment. Then she smiled slightly. Because conquest was never our goal, Cluster Mind. Humanity spent 10,000 years fighting itself. We nearly destroyed our own planet multiple times through war, pollution, and stupidity. We learned our lessons the hard way. She gestured to the display showing destroyed Devourer ships. We learned that power without purpose is meaningless. We learned that strength exists to protect, not to dominate. When we joined the coalition 5 years ago, we made a choice. We would be the shield, not the sword. War Marshal Thrax stood slowly. His scales had regained some of their color, but he still looked shaken. Ambassador Kim, Commander Park, you deceived us. For 5 years you let us mock you, insult you, treat you as inferiors. You possessed weapons that could have conquered every species in this room, yet you said nothing. Why? Park Ji-hoon's expression became serious. Marshal, with respect, we didn't deceive you. We gave you exactly what you asked for. Demonstrations of our technology, assessments of our capabilities, information about our military doctrine. We simply showed you our oldest, most outdated systems. You never asked to see more. You assumed we had nothing else to show. He let that sink in before continuing. As for why we endured your mockery, we needed to learn. We needed to understand the galaxy, its politics, its threats, its opportunities. We needed to know if the coalition was worth protecting. And we needed you to underestimate us, so that when a real threat appeared, our intervention would have maximum impact. A small floating species called the Drifters spoke through their translation device. You gambled with our lives. Thraxi could have been destroyed while you played your political games. Ambassador Kim Nari's expression hardened. We took calculated risks, yes. But understand this. We knew about the Devourer threat 2 years before the coalition detected them. We tracked their movements, studied their tactics, and prepared specifically for this conflict. We could have warned you earlier, but you needed to see us not as prophets bearing warnings, but as saviors arriving at the critical moment. She paused. Politics requires theater, delegate. We gave you a performance that will reshape galactic power structures for centuries. Director Han Jisu materialized on the display screen, transmitting from Earth. She was the head of Earth's intelligence division, a woman who had orchestrated humanity's infiltration of coalition information networks from the beginning. Honored delegates, please understand our position. We entered a galaxy where 47 species had formed alliances and power structures over thousands of years. We were newcomers, primitives in your eyes, barely worthy of probationary membership. She smiled coldly. If we had revealed our true strength immediately, you would have seen us as a threat to be contained or destroyed. By appearing weak, we gained access to your military databases, your scientific research, your political structures. We learned everything about you while you learned nothing true about us. That was strategic necessity, not cruelty. Meanwhile, in orbit above Vraxi Prime, a different kind of revelation was taking place. Captain Yang Minji commanded the human humanitarian fleet that had arrived hours after the battle. Her ships carried medical supplies, construction equipment, and teams of specialists trained in disaster relief. Dr. Lim Seojin worked in a field hospital set up on the planet's surface. He was a human doctor, but his current patient was a young Vraxi child whose arm had been crushed during the evacuation panic. The child's mother watched with suspicious eyes as the human doctor worked. "This will feel strange," Dr. Lim said gently through his translation device. He placed a device over the child's injured arm. Soft blue light pulsed from the machine. Within minutes, bones began knitting back together. Crushed tissue regenerated. Pain vanished. The child stared at his healed arm in wonder. His mother's eyes widened. How is this possible?" "Regenerative medical technology," Dr. Lim explained. "Your coalition medical science can heal most injuries given enough time. Our technology simply speeds up the body's natural healing process. The child will be fully recovered in an hour." All across Vraxi Prime, similar scenes were playing out. Human medical teams treated injuries that coalition doctors had declared untreatable. Human engineers repaired buildings using construction methods that seemed like magic. Human supply ships distributed food synthesizers that could create nutritious meals from basic organic compounds. Lieutenant Yoon Ji-won walked through a refugee center, still wearing her flight suit. A group of young Vraxi children approached her cautiously. The eldest, barely old enough to speak clearly, held out something in his small claws. Traditional warrior beads. The highest honor a Vraxi could give. Yoon Ji-won knelt down so she was at eye level with the children. Tears formed in her eyes as she understood what they were offering. She accepted the beads with trembling hands. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much." The children's mother approached and placed her hand on Yoon Ji-won's shoulder. "You saved my babies." "You saved all our babies. The Vraxi people will never forget this debt." Back in the council chamber, the debate continued. Some species demanded explanations. Others wanted access to human technology. A few suggested that humanity should be punished for their deception. High Chancellor Krivesh called for silence. When the chamber quieted, he spoke directly to the human delegation. "Commander Park, Ambassador Kim, I have ruled for 2 centuries. I have seen many things. But I have never seen a species with the power to conquer choose instead to protect. The Norian Empire formally apologizes for our treatment of humanity. We were wrong." He spread his wings in a gesture of respect. "The Coalition Council offers humanity full membership with no probationary restrictions. We offer permanent seats on the Military Council. We offer rights to colonize unclaimed sectors. And we ask, we do not demand, but ask, that you share your defensive technologies so that all species might better protect themselves." Commander Park Ji-hoon exchanged glances with Ambassador Kim Nari. They both nodded slightly. This was the moment they had planned for. "We accept your apology," Park Ji-hoon said. "We accept full membership. But we decline special privileges. We ask only one thing, that the Coalition Council amend its charter to include a new principle. Never judge a species by their appearance or apparent technology. Survival favors the adaptive, not merely the advanced. We will share some of our technology," Ambassador Kim Nari added. "Medical science, defensive shields, propulsion systems. But our most powerful weapons will remain under human control. Trust must be earned over generations, not days. We hope you understand." The council voted on the amendments. For the first time in coalition history, a vote was unanimous. All 47 species agreed to the human proposal. As the session ended, War Marshal Thrax approached the human delegation. He performed a Vraxi bow of respect, lowering his head until his forehead touched his own chest. The Vraxi home system was in chaos. On the bridge of War Marshal Thrax's flagship, alarms screamed warnings that everyone already knew. The Devourer fleet surrounded Vraxi Prime like a swarm of metal insects, each biomechanical ship pulsing with dark energy. 3,000 enemy vessels against the Coalition's pitiful defense force of 800 ships. Thrax stood at his command post, his scales pale with fear. In all his centuries of military service, he had never experienced fear before. The Vraxi were legendary warriors, conquerors of star systems, and he was their greatest general. Yet now he prepared to die. All ships maintain defensive formation around the evacuation transports, he ordered. His voice was steady, even though his heart was not. We hold them as long as we can. Every minute we survive, more civilians escape. On Vraxi Prime below, billions of reptilian citizens crowded into whatever transport ships could carry them. Children cried. Parents fought to get their families onto departing vessels. Ancient cities that had stood for 10,000 years were being abandoned. The Devourer fleet began moving closer. Their ships were unlike anything in the known galaxy, partially organic, partially mechanical, all of it wrong in ways that hurt to look at. They didn't use conventional weapons. Instead, they fired beams of energy that seemed to unmake whatever they touched. Coalition shields melted like ice under a blowtorch. The Quellan Cluster Mine 7 transmitted from its command vessel. Its insectoid voice carried across all Coalition channels. Probability of survival, 0.03%. All vessels should retreat while retreat remains possible, Thrax growled. The Vraxi do not retreat. We die protecting our people. Any Coalition ship that wishes to leave may do so. We will not judge you, no ships left. Whatever differences existed between Coalition species, they all understood honor. They would die together. Then space itself seemed to tear open. The first human ship appeared exactly 1,000 kilometers directly between the Devourer fleet and Vraxi Prime. Then another appeared beside it. Then 10 more. Then 100. Within 3 seconds, 500 massive warships materialized in a perfect defensive formation, their hulls gleaming silver against the darkness of space. Every Coalition sensor system went insane. The energy readings coming from the human fleet were impossible. Each ship registered power output that exceeded anything in Coalition databases. Their shield signatures didn't match any known technology. Even their physical appearance was wrong. Too smooth, too perfect, like they had been grown rather than built. On Thrax's bridge, his sensor officer made a choking sound. Marshal, these readings. These ships shouldn't exist. The power cores alone would require technology centuries beyond. I can read the display, Thrax interrupted. His eyes were fixed on the human fleet. Get me a communication channel now. Before he could speak, every Coalition vessel received a broadcast on all frequencies. The voice was calm, almost casual. This is Captain Lee Minho of the Earth Defense Fleet. We are here to assist. All Coalition vessels fall back to defensive position Delta 7 and observe. Thrax felt his jaw drop open. Earth Defense Fleet, humans? He activated his communication system. Captain Lee, this is War Marshal Thrax. You must retreat immediately. The Devourers cannot be fought with primitive human technology? Lee Minho's voice interrupted. There was amusement in his tone. Marshal, with respect, you never actually saw our real technology. You saw what we wanted you to see. Now watch and learn what happens when you underestimate humans. The Devourer fleet reacted to the new arrivals. 3,000 biomechanical ships turned as one. Their movements synchronized in ways that suggested a hive mind. They had been preparing to destroy the Coalition Defense Force, but these new ships were obviously more dangerous. The Devourers attacked immediately. A wave of their reality-breaking energy beams lanced across space toward the human fleet. The Coalition officers watching expected to see 500 human ships vaporize. Those weapons had destroyed heavily shielded Coalition battleships in seconds. The beams hit the human vessels and simply curved away, bent around the ships as if space itself had been folded. Not a single human ship took any damage. The Devourers fired again with the same result. And again. And again. On the Indomitable, Captain Lee Minho watched the enemy attacks wash harmlessly across his gravitational shields. Tactical, are we finished testing our defenses? Lieutenant Commander Park Soman nodded from her station. All shield configurations operating at peak efficiency, sir. The enemy weapons cannot penetrate our gravitational lensing. Good. Lee Minho touched his communication panel. This is Indomitable to all vessels. Weapons free. Show them Protocol 9. I want this done quickly and cleanly. What happened next would be talked about in Coalition military academies for the next 500 years. The human ships moved. They didn't just move. They performed maneuvers that should have been impossible. Ships the size of cities accelerated to combat speeds in seconds. turned at angles that should have torn them apart, and executed formation changes that looked like choreographed dances. From the underbelly of a vessel called Prometheus, small shapes began launching. At first, the coalition sensors counted hundreds, then thousands, then millions. Tiny autonomous drones, each no bigger than a human fist, poured out of the human carrier ships like metallic rain. They swarmed toward the Devourer fleet in a cloud so vast it blotted out the stars. Swarm deployment successful, Captain Bae Hyunwoo reported from the Prometheus. 7 million units active and engaging. The drones hit the Devourer ships and began tearing them apart from the outside. Where the biomechanical hulls tried to adapt and defend, the drones simply changed tactics. They were learning, evolving their attack patterns in real time. But the drones were just the beginning. Smaller human vessels, sleek fighters that registered barely larger than coalition scout ships, accelerated toward the enemy fleet. Lieutenant Yoon Ji-won led the first squadron. She was 24 years old and was about to become the most famous pilot in galactic history. Wraith Squadron, engage quantum phase systems, she said calmly. Her neural interface connected her mind directly to her fighter. She didn't use controls anymore. The ship responded to her thoughts. Her fighter began flickering in and out of normal space. 1 second it was visible, the next it had phased into a different dimension. She flew directly at a massive Devourer command ship, passed through its hull as if it were made of smoke, then phased back into normal space inside the enemy vessel. Detonation, she said simply. Her fighter's microfusion charge exploded inside the Devourer ship. The entire vessel collapsed in on itself and vanished. Yoon Ji-won's fighter phased out again, already moving toward her next target. All around the battlefield, other Wraith fighters were doing the same thing. They were ghosts, impossible to target, impossible to stop. Within 2 minutes, they had destroyed 50 of the largest Devourer ships. The main human fleet hadn't even fired their primary weapons yet. Admiral Kwon Tae-yang watched the battle from his command center. His fingers drummed on the arm of his chair. Status of enemy command structure? Lieutenant Yoon's squadron has eliminated the primary control nodes. His tactical officer reported. The Devourer fleet coordination is breaking down. Good. Time to end this. Admiral Kwon opened a fleet-wide channel. All dreadnoughts target the remaining command vessels. Fire molecular disruptors. The largest human ships, massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed anything the Coalition had ever built, activated weapons that the galaxy had never seen before. Beams of pure physics-breaking energy lanced out from their forward batteries. When these beams touched a Devourer ship, the vessel didn't explode. It simply stopped existing. The molecular bonds holding the matter together were disrupted at the quantum level. The ships collapsed into clouds of loose atoms. 20 Devourer command ships vanished in the first volley. Another 30 disappeared in the second volley. The remaining Devourers tried to scatter, but the human targeting systems were too precise, too fast. On the Coalition vessels, nobody spoke. They simply watched in stunned silence as humanity dismantled an enemy that had defeated them 3 times. The battle lasted 23 minutes from start to finish. 3,000 Devourer ships were destroyed. Not one human vessel was damaged. Not one human life was lost. When the last enemy ship disintegrated into atomic dust, Captain Lee Min-ho opened a channel to the Coalition fleet. Marshal Thrax, the immediate threat has been neutralized. Human medical and recovery teams are standing by to assist with your wounded. We will also begin repairing any damaged Coalition vessels. For a long moment, Thrax couldn't speak. His throat was too tight. Finally, he managed to whisper, "Captain Lee, what are you?" Lee Min-ho's response was quiet but firm. "We are what you forced us to become, Marshal. We are prepared. We are capable. And we are your allies, whether you believed in us or not." Across the Coalition fleet on 47 different types of ships, in 47 different alien languages, the same question was being asked. How had humanity hidden such overwhelming power? How long had they possessed these weapons? And most importantly, what else were they hiding? Oh. The council chamber floated in space, a massive structure built by the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. Inside, representatives from 47 different alien species gathered around a circular table that glowed with soft blue light. Commander Park Ji-hoon stood at the human podium, his uniform crisp and clean, his face calm despite what was about to happen. He had been Earth's military representative for 2 years now. In that time, he had learned to ignore the whispers, the laughter, and the dismissive gestures. Today would be different, though. Today he would make an offer that would change everything. The emergency session had been called because of the Devourers. That was what the aliens called them, a fleet of mysterious ships that consumed everything in their path. They had already destroyed 12 colonies across 3 different sectors. Billions of lives had been lost. The Galactic Coalition's mighty fleets had fought them 3 times and lost every single battle. Park Ji-hoon cleared his throat and spoke into the silence. His voice carried across the chamber through translation devices that made his words understandable to every species present. Honorable members of the Council, Earth offers its military forces to help fight the Devourers. We have ships ready to deploy and soldiers prepared to defend Coalition space. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then the laughter began. War Marshal Thrax of the Vraxi Dominion was the first to speak. He was a massive reptilian creature, covered in dark green scales with eyes that glowed yellow in the dim light. His species had conquered 30 star systems through pure military might. When he laughed, it sounded like rocks grinding together. The humans offer to help us? Thrax's voice boomed across the chamber. The species that still uses chemical rockets and kinetic bullets? The primates who only left their home planet 200 years ago? More laughter rippled through the council. Cluster Mind 7, representing the Quellan Collective, clicked its mandibles in what passed for amusement among the insectoid species. Our analysis shows human military technology is approximately 400 years behind Coalition standard. Their weapons cannot penetrate even basic defensive shields. High Chancellor Krivesh of the Norian Empire spread his wings in a gesture of dismissal. His species had ruled the stars for 10,000 years, and their arrogance matched their age. Young Commander Park, we appreciate the gesture, but this is not a matter for species as developing as yours. The Devourers are beyond your comprehension. Return to your solar system and leave warfare to those who understand it. Ambassador Kim Nari sat beside Park Ji-hoon, her hands folded on the table before her. She had been Earth's chief diplomat for 5 years. She had endured countless insults, watched as alien species treated humans like children and smiled through it all. But now, as she listened to the mockery, something cold settled in her chest. She leaned over and whispered something to Park Ji-hoon. He nodded slightly, then touched a control on his datapad. Light years away on Earth, a coded message was received. 3 words that would set everything in motion. Show them archives. Park Ji-hoon tried once more. With respect, Marshal Thrax, Earth has been studying Coalition military tactics for 5 years. We have observed your strengths and weaknesses. We believe we can contribute meaningfully to the defense effort. Contribute? Thrax's laughter grew louder. You cannot even travel faster than light in combat situations. Your ships require weeks to cross distances our vessels cover in hours. Tell me, Commander, how do you plan to fight an enemy you cannot even catch? The other species joined in with their own comments. The Norians pointed out that human ships had no energy shields. The Quellans noted that human weapons were barbaric and inefficient. A small, floating species called the Drifters simply stated that allowing humans into a real battle would be genocide by incompetence. Ambassador Kim Nari stood slowly. Her voice was quiet, but something in her tone made the chamber fall silent. Honored delegates, you have reviewed our military capabilities. You have seen our ships, our weapons, our technology. You have made your assessment. The Coalition votes on Earth's offer to assist in the defense effort. The vote was swift and brutal. 46 species voted against allowing humanity to participate. Only Earth voted in favor of its own involvement. The decision was recorded in official Coalition records. Humanity was to remain within the solar system for its own protection. Any attempt to leave would be seen as a violation of probationary membership status. As the council session ended, aliens filed out of the chamber, already discussing their own defense strategies. Some spoke of retreating to fortified positions. Others talked about negotiating with the Devourers, though no one knew if such creatures could even be reasoned with. Park Ji-hoon and Kim Nari remained at their podium, watching the aliens leave. When they were alone, Kim Nari allowed herself a small smile. They have no idea, she said softly. Park Ji-hoon nodded. No, they never asked the right questions. They assumed we were primitive because we showed them primitive technology. That was always the plan. Far across the galaxy on a secret base hidden in the Kuiper Belt beyond Neptune, Captain Lee Minho stood on the bridge of the battleship Indomitable. His ship was one of 500 vessels that the Galactic Coalition had no knowledge of. Each one was equipped with technology that would make the aliens' most advanced ships look like ancient relics. Lee Minho had just received his orders. He turned to his crew and smiled. "Attention all hands. This is the captain speaking. 5 years ago, we were told to hide our strength. We were told to appear weak while we learned everything we could about the galaxy. We were told to be patient." He paused, letting the anticipation build among his crew. "Today that patience ends. The aliens have rejected our help. They have mocked us for the last time. We have new orders from Earth Command." Around him, displays lit up showing the locations of the Devourer fleet. They were heading toward the Vraxi home system. 12 billion reptilian civilians would die in 2 days if no one stopped the attack. Protocols 7 through 13 are now active. Lee Minho continued. All ships are to prepare for quantum fold jumps. Target coordinates are being sent to your stations now. We are going to save the Vraxi homeworld. And in doing so, we are going to show the galaxy what humanity really is. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Park Soman, looked up from her console. "Sir, if we reveal our true capabilities now, there's no going back. The Coalition will know we've been hiding our strength all along." Lee Minho nodded. "Yes, they'll know we deceived them. They'll know we allowed them to mock us while we possessed weapons that could conquer the entire galaxy, but they'll also know something more important." "What's that, sir?" "They'll know that despite having the power to dominate them, we chose instead to save them. That's the lesson we need them to learn. Humanity could be conquerors. We choose to be protectors." Throughout the secret fleet, 500 ships began powering up their quantum fold drives. This technology allowed instantaneous travel across vast distances. It was something the Coalition had theorized about but never achieved. Humanity had perfected it 15 years ago. In engineering bays, weapon systems came online. Molecular disruptors that could tear apart matter at the atomic level, gravitational lenses that bent space-time itself to create impenetrable shields, swarm drone systems that could deploy millions of autonomous fighters in seconds. Admiral Quan Tai Yang, Supreme Commander of Earth's Secret Defense Fleet, stood in the command center of Outpost Sanctuary. He was 55 years old and had spent the last 30 years building this fleet. 3 decades of planning, construction, and preparation for this exact moment. He opened a channel to all 500 ships. "This is Admiral Quan to all vessels. In approximately 30 seconds, we will fold directly into the Vraxi home system. We will arrive between the Devourer fleet and the planet they intend to destroy. Our mission is simple. Protect the Vraxi people and demonstrate to the Galactic Coalition that humanity is not what they believe us to be." He looked at the countdown timer on his display. 10 seconds remained. "Remember your training. Remember why we built this fleet. Not for conquest. Not for revenge. But for the day when our strength would be needed to protect those who once mocked us. That day has come. All ships, engage fold drives on my mark." The countdown reached 0. Mark. 500 human warships vanished from the Kuiper Belt. The space where they had been rippled briefly, then became still again. They reappeared instantly in the Vraxi home system, thousands of light years away. The war was about to begin, and the galaxy was about to learn that humanity was far more than anyone had imagined.